everyone, my name is Clay and welcome to Terminally Nerdy, and today we're actually going to be reviewing a Choose Your Own Adventure game book that's on the Android as well as PC and apparently the web too, called Slammed. It is published by Choice of Games, and what we're going to do here, since it's the first kind of game book review, I'm going to kind of divide the review up into two sections. We're going to talk about the story first, and then we're going to talk about the mechanics of the book. Game books, for those of you who don't know, are literally that. They're games within books. They are stories. They could be as basic as, if you decide to fight the wolves, turn to page 45. They can be as advanced as involving dice or random number generation and actual character creation, which we'll do a couple of those later. There's an entire series called Lone Wolf that is basically built like that. The Choice of Games, though, pretty much all kind of fall into sort of not quite as mechanically advanced as creating your own character and rolling dice, but there are some mechanics to them. And to be honest, Slammed is one of my favorites and is the first one of theirs that I ever actually read. I picked it up because, specifically, it's a wrestling choose-your-own adventure book. So let's go ahead and get right into the story, and I'll explain kind of how the book is. Now, this is a wrestling-themed choose-your-own adventure story, and it tells the story of you as if you were a wrestler. Now, you start the game as an independent wrestler trying to make a name for yourself in a very small promotion. You're kind of their star. The game does have some background automatically for your character. In this case, you're a collegiate wrestler who, depending on your choices, either came in first or second. Generally, I believe it's first, no matter what you do, just how you got there, in this huge NCAA kind of division finals. And as you play through the game, your story is told. You'll make choices about how certain things in your past happened. You'll make decisions about who you want to work with in the corporate wrestling world. You work with their version of Hulk Hogan. You work with their version of Vince McMahon. Things like that. The story is actually really well told, and the entire goal is to get to one of several endings and either get some closure on your past, or become the World Heavyweight Champion, essentially, at the big WrestleMania-like thing. The story is actually really well done. There are some twists and turns. As a game book, there are a fair number of choices, while you still always end up at the same point. Like, you start here, you can branch out, but you always end up back here. You always end up at specific points, you'll always end up back. So while there is some twisting and turning and multiple endings, the story being told is always going to end up being the same. You'll do these events, which will lead into this branching group, which goes back to this event, which leads into this branching group, and so on. The story is well enough, for example, that the last time I played it, I played through it a couple of times since I've gotten it. First time I got it, I played it 3 times literally in a row. Second time I started playing it for this review, I played it 4 times in a row. The writing is really well done, and I enjoy it, and there's a lot of decision-making. You, as the story progresses, can be a face or a heel, or you can switch between the two. You, at one point, have to put on another persona when you come back, and you get to decide how your new persona will wrestle. Do you wrestle the same as your old style or your new style? But how does the game keep track of all this? All these choices in a print game book would just be you picking pages. Because this is digital, it's a little more advanced. So what the Choice of Game system does is when you start your character, you'll be presented usually with a gauntlet of choices. These choices will set up your initial play state. For example, in this one you have 3 wrestling styles. You can focus on physical, technical, or promotion. And then a little second later, you'll pick which is your weakest. These will set your basically your stat bars for those types. So for example, if you pick, I'm a strength-based wrestler early on, your strength score will be 50 out of 100. And then if you say, well, my weakest is my technician wrestling, it'll probably be a 20 out of 100. And then it'll put the promo at 35-40, kind of the halfway point between them. It also tracks all of your relationships. So every time you say yes or no to a person, there's an entire chart where there's relationship meters, how much these people like you. So as people like you or dislike you, these relationship meters change. What do these meters mean? Well, they lock out choices. For example, early on, there's a point where you have to come up against another wrestler, and you have to decide during this kind of training event how do you attempt to take him down? Do you attempt to overpower him, or do you attempt to talk your way out of it? Now, if you're playing a technical wrestler, your strength and your speech skills are probably pretty low. So no matter which one you pick, you may fail, and it'll give you a fail. You'll still progress the story, but you won't necessarily get a specific advantage or thing from there. But like if you're a strength-based wrestler and you pick the strength decision, it'll check what your strength score is, and you'll get a decision accordingly. Further, certain things cannot be done if you don't have a high enough stat. Like towards the end of the game, there's a section of wrestling, and if you don't have a specific score in a specific thing, you won't even be able to make the decision on screen. It'll be grayed out. You can't click it. And that's how this monitors it, and increases the replay value. Unfortunately, however, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. Like, you'll make a choice thinking that'll increase my strength score, and it won't do what you think it did. A couple of times that happens, and it kind of gets aggravating. It's not too prevalent, thankfully, in Slammed. In Slammed, pretty much what you see is what you get, but all the choice of games use this system to varying degrees. Now, as far as do I think you should play it? So first of all these game books are dirt cheap, like $3. Slammed is an excellent one if you're a wrestling fan. If you're not a wrestling fan, this is not a game book for you to play. It's not going to make you a wrestling fan, and it uses wrestling terminology with no real description of what those terms mean. If you don't already know what a face or a heel is, if you don't know what a powerbomb is, if you don't know what a dropkick or a clothesline is, if you don't know what a shoot or a work is, this will not really explain those terms to you. It's written for wrestling fans to live out a wrestling-styled dream, and it does it really well. Especially later on when you get to start doubling down and like getting advanced training and things. I do think it is worth the money. Personally, I got it, like I said, on my phone. It works great. All the choice of games I've ever purchased actually are on my phone, and I've enjoyed pretty much all of them except for one, which I'll review at some point. Hate it. So, I think this is a good book. I think it's an enjoyable book. If you're a wrestling fan, I would highly recommend checking it out. You can usually check out the beginning portions for free, and then after a certain point, it'll ask you to purchase it. I advise you to give it a try. It gets my seal of approval. Now, if you like this review and you want me to look at more game books, please let me know in the comments below. If you have any specific ones you want me to check out, leave those as well. And if you like what I'm doing, feel free to hit that like button. If you don't like it, feel free to hit the dislike button and tell me why. Preferably in the comment section and not angry random shouting through the ether. You won't hear it. I have poor ears. Alright, feel free to support me on Patreon if you like, and feel free to subscribe for more shenanigans, tomfoolery, and videos. And as always, folks, thanks for watching, and remember, stay nerdy.